Well, hello everybody. It's Robert Barber with Coastal Properties and Christie's International Real Estate here from the Moeller&Barber Real Estate team, continuing our Money with Alexa series, which I love. It's a fantastic series because the reason I like it so much is because it is the crux of really making a transaction happen. You can find a place to live and you can fall in love with it and you can want to close on it, but if you don't have the money to do it, it doesn't matter. And so how we do that is we find vendors and partners like Price Mortgage and Caliber Home Loans to help our clients make their dreams come true by making sure that the financing is in place, but not only just the financing, the right financing.
Correct.
So anyway, Alexa, thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I hear you have an exciting topic for this episode. It's one that actually breaks a lot of hearts.
It does.
But it's a reality. It's a truth of buying real estate. And so, Alexa, why don't you share with us a little bit about what this episode is all about?
My house didn't appraise. Can I still buy it?
The appraisal question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So that's an important question that not only your realtor needs to understand, but also the financing piece needs
Correct.
to be. So tell us a little bit about that and how that works and what it's all
Well,
about.
people have a misconception that if the home doesn't appraise, they're done.
Okay.
That a bank looks at the appraisal and the sales price, and if those things don't jive, that the financing ends right there. And that's
Okay.
not actually the case.
It's okay.
It's not.
Okay.
So your home cannot appraise and you can still purchase it.
Okay.
But the next question is, what does that look like? And
Okay.
what does that mean? And what do I do next?
Okay.
Right? So I kind of just did some brief examples just to kind of understand the difference in the financing.
Okay.
So, and we're talking about, FHA, VA, conventional, really there's no differentiation
It's across the
between.
board.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. When it comes to appraisal, some people think, well, government loan, FHA or VA has to appraise, they can't buy the house. That's not what it means. It does change the financing, and I'll kind of explain. In some cases it affects it, in some cases it doesn't affect it. So like, let's just say you have a property that you're paying $100,000 for.
Okay.
That's your purchase price, and you're putting down 5%, right? So simple math, $100,000, putting down 5%, $5,000. Now what happens if the home comes in at $95,000? The appraisal is not 100, it's 95.
Okay.
So all of a sudden we'll get a phone call, what do? I can't buy the house.
Sure.
Well, that's not actually true. Now what happens is lending goes off the lower of the two. So in this case now, your appraisal at 95 drives what we're working with.
From a financing package.
From a financing package, correct. So now we're going to take 95% on 95,000, which is 90,250. So you take that 90,250 minus your sales price of 100, and now your down payment is 9,750.
So you've
versus
almost doubled
5,000.
where you were going to be
Correct. So your down payment in this case is greater because you were only putting 5% down.
Okay, so basically what happens then if the appraisal comes in lower, what that means to me as the buyer is that I'm going to be responsible for that difference or more cash. I'm going to have to bring more cash
Correct.
percentage-wise to the closing than we originally had talked about possibly.
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 And not always.
Okay.
Because like, let's just say we go to the more of a jumbo world, right? Someone's buying a home for $500,000
Okay.
and they're putting 30% down. So they're financing $350,000. So if your appraisal in this case comes in at 475, well, 475 with a 350 loan amount, really the loan hasn't changed. You're still borrowing 350
Right.
because you haven't now exceeded 20% of the value, right? So
it's the loan to value ratio piece that comes into
no
play
MI
now.
comes into play. Your interest rate hasn't changed, so you're still borrowing 350. Right? So in that scenario, nothing's changed. Your payment hasn't changed. Your out of pocket hasn't changed because you were putting such a large down payment to begin with.
Gotcha.
Right? So it depends on the original equity position you were putting down.
Okay.
Right?
But it also depends on what the contract says.
Correct.
Which
So-
is now falls into the realtors or brokerages side is what deal did you strike with the seller as the buyer as what happens if it doesn't appraise.
Mm-hmm.
What does the contract language say now that, what are your options? Not only is the financing world telling you here are your options and here's, what we can and cannot do, but then also what does the contract language say and how's that going to impact your deal or what your responsibilities are under that arrangement. So.
Right, and typically as a lender, we get the appraisal first, right? So if the house doesn't appraise, we're kind of looking at it and going, how is this going to affect the financing? So as a buyer, the first question to your lender is, how does this change my financing? That's what you really want to know first. And then your second question is really calling your realtor and going, okay, well, what do we do? Even if it doesn't change my financing, do I want to go back to the seller with my agent and kind of negotiate that? But then that's between you guys. Our job is to kind of explain the financing piece and how it could change it for you. And then secondly, you get with your realtor. But the misconception sometimes is it has to appraise or your deal is done, and that's not true.
Well, that's really important because I can tell you in this market, as fast as it's moving, appraisals, it's a gamble sometimes on how it can go through. I'm not, to deter anyone from going through the process, but you just got to be smart about it and understand how the appraisal process not only feeds into the financing piece, but also feeds into the contract piece. So that's super. This is great information.
Yeah, and an appraisal's opinion of value. So you don't want to fall out of love with your favorite home. Just because maybe it didn't appraise by what you originally thought, because it's just it's an opinion of value.
Let me ask you a question. Can you appeal an appraisal that comes in?
You can. Does it work? Not really.
Okay.
I mean, we get a lot of questions about that. I want to go back with comps. Now, if there's some comps that were not used, then we can go back to what's called a rebuttal process and go back to our appraisal department and say, here's some additional comps that were not reviewed in the appraisal. But most likely, it's just because they have percentages to work within, and they can't push them any higher than what they pushed them.
Yeah. Well, we don't want to end up back where we were.
No, we don't.
So, anyway. Well, again, Alexa, thanks for the information. This is super good information. We're going to put all the information down below. So basically the transcript of what we just talked about today. If you have any questions, we're also going to have Alexa's and her team's information there so you can connect directly with them. But be aware of your appraisal and how that's going to impact your deal. And thanks for bringing that forward, Alexa. I really appreciate it. All right. We'll see you in the next episode. Money with Alexa.
Bye.